and a lot of them have a lot of intentions that they don't let everyone know about. It's been said that we're more like a committee, and one of the goals is to not let the committee run you. You have to run your committee. We don't worry about who you are. That's a rabbit hole we don't need to go down to right this second.
Mm-hmm.
So you can have an intention that you can have a lot of intentions you don't tell yourself about. The mind is very sneaky, very sneaky, and a lot of times, if you're like quitting drinking, as some people here probably have or may have at one time or another, and you really intend not to drink, but then you find yourself driving past the liquor store or pulling into a market where there's alcohol served, and you're walking past, so there was an intention there that you were not conscious of. I don't know if I'd call it, I guess you could call it an unconscious intention, but there are things we hide from ourselves because we're very sneaky. The defilements are very sneaky, and they're not sneakier than us, though. So we can always win out. They'll tell you they are. Oh no, you're going to give in. You're going to eat this cake. You're going to drink this drink. You're going to do whatever. And they've got 1,010,000 good arguments about why. Well, you've already broken down. You're going to anyway. But so yeah, I think I would say you could have intentions that you're not aware of, that you have to be on guard against.
Excellent. Now it's your turn, B. It's bust a cap in our a-holes.
It's my turn?
Yeah, it's your turn.
Oh, yeah, well, listen. Otto's a man here. I would
man among men.
I would like, if you would, expose yourself for a few seconds here. Nobody believes me.
My camera's off. You have no idea how I'm dressed right now, Val.
Nobody believes me that you look like Santa Claus. Nobody believes me. I'm telling you, I met Santa Claus.
Everybody here's seen me, I'm sure.
Yeah, I got nervous because he said he wanted you to expose yourself. I was like,
no, not like that. No, I could do without that.
I mean, dude, if it was anybody else, you know what I mean? But you saying, I want you
dirty old Santa men are a dime a dozen around here. I don't want people to see the real deal here.
There we
go. Got a beard, an epic beard. Any proud boy would be jealous of you.
Mm-hmm. Now get on to the question.
Yes. Well, okay.
This is a good question.
Wow, he looks like he could be the headmaster at Hogwarts over here.
Can we have unconscious intentions, V?
Yes, we can. Listen, unconscious. Well, and it's funny because I just got done watching the movie Slither. I don't know if anybody has watched this movie. It's like a Slaneshi fever dream. If anybody watched this thing, a guy gets taken over by an alien parasite, but yet somehow he retains some of his original consciousness, and he has this intent to keep his wife safe and continue a relationship with her, even though this parasite has taken over him and his entire biology has betrayed him because of this parasite. But yet the intent is there to remain who he is. And I thought that was like fundamentally like something. It's something that should be discussed. Another worldly invader comes in, wants to change your world, and yet biologically you have no defense. But the mind tends to override if it can be reached. So
it's actually a good point. It's
Alien
I liken it
is a growing problem.
It's almost like the Jedi mind trick situation, right? Where if you have enough awareness, like the Jedi does, the Jedi mind trick doesn't work on you. Whereas if you have low awareness, like the Stormtrooper, they can slip one past you and make you believe that is your thoughts and make you react in a certain way, right? These are not the droids you were looking for. Now, I believe that kind of thing happens in daily life through telepathic communications, whether they're with other people or interdimensional beings or aliens. All sorts of things happen in the ecosystem of life. And I think it comes down to, even within your own consciousness, like Otto was saying, like we have multiple personalities within our brain, and they're all competing with each other, talking to each other subconsciously all the time. And the conscious mind that you're sort of perceiving through right now is the ultimate decision maker, right? And if you have enough awareness, you can get in front of these subconscious thoughts that bubble up to the surface and decide whether to act on them or react to them or not. And I always had the question whether I always felt like I was a victim of my own emotions. Sometimes I didn't want to have a certain emotion in a certain time, but they seem to just keep rolling on. And I always wondered, like, is there a point where you can have enough awareness to get in front of an emotion and stop it before it can happen?
I want to answer this personally because I have personal experience with this. I say this as a Scorpio, as sort of a veil. Maybe it'll excuse me of certain actions here, but I'm a Scorpio, and I'm extremely romantic, and yet I'm extremely hateful. I'm very passionate, yet highly intelligent. I don't let emotions take me to the edge. Now, I have always envied those guys who could get with chicks and not fall in love with them, and just have these one-night stands over and over again. I went down that path, having one-night stand over and over and over again. Yeah, but to me, I fell in love with every girl. It was them that didn't call me back. Okay, so but at the end of the day, it's like, okay, I've had relationships and long relationships, 7, 8 years at a time, and it's like I am tired and I'm bored of this, and it's like, and I always wished that I didn't have that weakness of not falling, of that weakness of falling in love. Now I'm at that point where I'm like that every dude that could just bang a chick and just be done with it.
Now
and I'm not having emotional feelings. I'm at that point right now.
What you're talking about right there.
Now that I'm at that point,
what you're talking about right there,
those romantic feelings again.
Slither, right? You said
you thought something would be a really great thing to feel and be, and then when you get there, you find out that it's not what you thought.
Right, and
Slither. But, getting to what Mr. Robot was saying about the emotions. This is the problem. This is the key.
Mm-hmm.
And one Buddhist teacher I listened to, he always says what we want is to think the thoughts we want to think and not think the thoughts we don't want to think. Now, and they use the term in Pali, chitta, which means mind, but it also means heart. So they don't differentiate the emotions from the mind so much. And I was talking to a very good friend of mine. We've been discussing this for some years. And she said, realized, I tell myself one thing, I tell myself one story, and I have these emotions. I change the story, I change the emotions. There's something they call in Buddhism, it's called a becoming. And it's taking on an identity in a world of experience. And usually the experience is completely in your mind. And, you'll wake up in the morning. I've seen people do it. You wake up in the morning, you're having your coffee, you turn on the news. There's something about somebody you've never met before, got upset about something that you never heard of before. And within 5 minutes, you are worked up and angry because you've taken on an identity of feeling sorry for the victim of the story and being angry at you don't know the story. You don't know anything except you read 3 or 4 lines or maybe listened to like 3 minutes of a news report. But you've taken on this identity and you've got all these emotions. So the key is not to take on these identities, not to allow yourself to fall into this world that exists only in your head, because really you're just sitting right now in front of a keyboard probably. That's what's real. Everything else it's good to be aware of, but you can't make the emotional investment in it. The emotional investment of like, this person said this to me, or this person might say that to me. Maybe. But if we can keep ourselves here, then we can cope with these things with a lot more energy. We don't waste the energy on fighting a battle. We're little primates. we're designed to fight or flee. And if a leopard is jumping at us, that's great. But if we're in a workplace and the boss yells at us, we can't punch the boss. We can't run out of the building. That's what we're programmed to do. That's what our evolutionary heritage is. But instead, we have to just eat the adrenaline, and we have to be where we are. I don't know how I got into that part of it.
Otto, you and I, we have to talk off the air.
Well, I
please.
also want to add
Just-
in on that
Certainly.
because you
This comes back to that
Hold on,
analogy
hey.
that I had, that your ego is kind of like a pet animal within you.
Hold
that the
Slither.
more under control you keep it, it's like a balancing act of someone standing on a tightrope. And if it pulls you too much in one direction, you get off balance. If it pulls you into the other direction, you get too far off balance and you might fall off, right? Which is the concept of losing control. Now, the two sides of that balancing act is desire and emotion, right? And both of those things are on this line of your belief systems. And ultimately, the only thing you have full control over is what you believe. And that comes down to analyzing the thoughts that you've had in the past, right?
Mhm.
And if you can change your beliefs, you can change your reaction to circumstances, which then changes your emotions to those circumstances and your desires about those circumstances.
And that's
right?
exactly what
I want.
I don't feel better about it,
you can
though.
control your mind. That's really the only thing under your control, and that's what you should concentrate on.
On this topic, when it comes to Slither too, I want to point out two things to that movie that
Oh,
will
you've
help
seen
you
the
out.
movie?
Now,
Great.
now,
I
now,
wanna hear
listen. These are two important things. Okay, freaking. The first one is the making alien love scene. Okay, and this, and another thing that you need to focus on is Brenda, the big fat breeding alien.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Now, when you were talking about that, that's the two things to focus on with what you were just discussing right there.
You like fat girls too?
Well, who doesn't? but really, but really, when it comes to unconscious intention, dude, I'm telling you right now that's where you need to go watch that movie when you have a chance, and then re-look at it. And you'll see what I'm talking about, man. It has a lot to do with that.
Pull me close, don't let me breathe. I'm shaking just from how you touch me. You grip your voice the way you take control. God, I'm already falling, losing all my hope. Every word you growl pulls me deeper in. I'm begging for the next hit of your heat again. You break me open with the slightest sound. Baby, I come undone when you push me down. Make me undone. Take me harder. I tremble when you pin my wrist. Your breath on my neck, I can't resist. Every command you whisper ruins me deep. I do anything just to hear you breathe. Every bruise of your voice writes my fate again. I'm begging for the fire only you can send. Break me open, baby, let me drown. God, I come undone when you force me down. Make me undone. You to take me harder. Tell me you want me, I'll give you everything. Push me past the edge, make me scream your name. I'm yours to ruin, yours to command. Just say the word and I'll take your hand. Undone, undone, you pull me under. I fall apart in your hands, begging you to take me rougher. Undone, undone, you pull me under. I fall apart in your hands, begging you to take me rougher. Make me undone. Make me undone.
And everything that you guys have been talking about is right there in those two scenes. It's pretty tight. Like, I think people really underestimate the subconscious mind. You know what I mean? And I love to talk about it a lot. So I'm glad that you guys were able to talk about that because it's really fascinating. You know, can you have unconscious intentions? Now, when I think of that, what really sticks out to me is the part in the Bible where it talks about Jesus casting out the demons into the swine and they run into the water. You know,
All right.
we have, like you said, Otto, we have over 1,000 different kinds of personalities and characters within our mind. Okay, and that right there would be the equivalence of these 1,000 demons that were freaking possessing this guy, and Jesus pulled them out of his mind and cast them into swine who ran into the water and drowned themselves. You know, that's
Right, that's an interesting way to look at that. That's an interesting way to put it.
yeah.
I remember years ago hearing a story of a Buddhist, an elderly Buddhist monk from the East who came to England, and while he was there, somebody gave him, well, here's a Bible, here's the New Testament, and he's reading him bits of the Sermon on the Mount and this and that, and the Buddhist monk says, those are the words of someone who is quite likely a bodhisattva. And just think it would be interesting, and maybe the future Buddha there will be Jataka tales, which are the stories of the Buddha's previous incarnations of the time he was a teacher in Palestine.
So I think I did a good job on my questions. I'm just going to shut up now and let you guys freaking take over from here. Because
I was
After midnight headlines. I'm so sorry I derailed that whole thing. We can go-
no, hey, you're fine. What it was is like you turned into like a serious pervert, and I had to come out with like some really cool questions to ask
I'm
you.
like
to
One
distract
Punch Man.
you.
One Punch Man had the serious punch. No, I'm the pervert. I have serious pervertedness.
Yeah, I know. We all know. I'm editing the content that you got perverted on, so it's like
It's very good tonight, though. I gotta say,
dude,
gathering did well, dude. Very good. You just fell right into the groove, man. You were groovy.
you're on your game tonight, dude. You really
All right,
are.
so let me ruin it. Oh, ski. Oh, ski.
One more thing I'd like to add, guys, is just the concept of like responsibility as you develop your awareness. Remember how like Jesus said, forgive them for they know not what they do. That sort of insinuated that because they had low level of awareness, they shouldn't be held as highly responsible for their actions as someone who does. And I think that also kind of comes into the intentionality aspect of it, where when you become more aware of your actions and their consequences, you are more ethically responsible for, said actions.
Are you not removing agency from the person by doing that?
No.
What do you mean
Well,
by agency?
Some people have more agency than others. The demonstration of agency is an important, step to take. So I think it's acknowledging that people may not have as much agency and you're trying to make allowance for them might be a way to look at it.
Yeah. And another thing that stuck out to me with your guys' conversation, especially when you got into the more darker, morbid parts about killing children. Like, I love really taking deep thoughts on that because I have nephews and nieces, okay? And I've had fun with them all through their lives. We played games together, had fun and stuff, and I could tell at certain levels in their ages they completely forgot everything that's happened to them when they were from the ages of 1 to 7, and then from the ages of 7 to 18. At some point in their early 20s, they just completely forgot what happened to them as a teenager or as a young person. And I do find that pretty amazing because and I've always been a kind of person, I can tell you stuff that's happened to me back when I was 13, 12 years old.
I can tell you what happened to me. My earliest memory is of me sitting in a car seat, the baby carrier thing. I was sat in front of 2 windows in the apartments that my mom was moving in to. I was a month old. That's my earliest memory. Watching the curtains flutter in the wind. That's my earliest memory.
I
think my
remember.
earliest memory goes back to 3 years old or something like that, and it's interesting because I think it was a time where there was it created a strong emotion in me. I was having a lot of fun, and that same memory has never changed through my whole life. I can still remember exactly what I did there. But a lot of the other surrounding memories, I've lost access to it. I don't think they're gone. I think I've just lost the ability to recall them as easily, right? You kind of strongly emotive memories are easier to access than others. And sometimes you need a trigger or to remember those ones,
Mm-hmm.
I think memories can be triggered that something will occur to you that you hadn't thought about in years, much further back than you'd ever thought of. Perhaps a smell or a similar sight can set it off. So I think stuff's in there somewhere. And I think the earliest thing I can remember furthest back is I remember being a soldier in World War One.
Oh, you want to get into the lives? You want to get into past lives? Yeah, I'm Guy Fawkes. I tried to blow up Parliament.
I think I was just a private soldier that was killed in an artillery barrage shortly after arriving in France. It wasn't very dramatic.
Austin Summers, or Austin Todd, Summer Todd, but it's her son Austin. He believes the same way. He believes that he was reincarnated and that he served in the military during World War One, and he keeps having visions of the war and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Well, you know what's interesting? I want to just quickly add there. I went to a Vipassana Buddhist meditation retreat thing one time.
Cool.
And after I've been sitting there for about 8 days meditating, what happens is you start remembering past events in your life, starting with the most recent that you haven't energetically resolved yet, and then all of a sudden something will shift. You'll be able to let it go. And what happens then is you'll remember a memory even further back, until I was recalling stuff from years ago that I thought I'd forgotten, and they would just come back up clear as day. And what my ex-partner said to me is what happens is you keep going further back until your birth, and that's when you're able to go even further back to previous lives and stuff like that. So I wonder if it's like people that claim to like recall past lives, whether they've already resolved a lot of the things in this life, and they're still trying to resolve now things further back. You know what I mean?
What do you mean by ex-partner?
My
his
ex-wife, you know?
Yeah, he's from Australia. That's all I've got to say.
Your ex-wife?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Significant other, your partner.
Yeah, I don't know how else to say it.
They say that.
If you would have said your boyfriend, I would be like, okay, cool, too. I was just wondering.
It's just
Oh,
really
yeah.
it's really weird having people from the United States in my group, because like freaking I asked them the same question and they shun me because they're freaking like snooty freaking British freaking people. Like horrible. And Mr. Robot's the worst. Like he loves freaking Australia, dude. He says that freaking Australia is the greatest nation in the world, dude.
Well, I didn't say nation. The landmass, the country, the culture of the peoples here are great.
You can only live on the
government and the overarching British Empire is terrible. No offense, Mark.
I remind everybody here, that Australians came from Britain mainly, mostly.
So did Americans, but we escaped it.
America.
We made America great, dude.
The only countries that really kicked the Brits' butts.
The chamber lit by fluorescent truth, paper towers rise to the roof, stamped and sealed with measured tone, processing time unknown. A request filed in a winter hall echoed down the marble wall. 15 years to turn the key to what the public asked to see. They say it's volume, say it's scale, consultations in the trail, boxes stacked in careful lines, running out the clock on time. 50 years of silence, locked inside a file, answers waiting patience in bureaucratic style. Trust is built in daylight, not buried deep in stacks. If truth can stand forever, why hold the curtain back? Why hold the curtain back?
truth can stand forever. Let it unfold. 15 or maybe less. The truth moves best when nothing's sealed in darkness. In a chamber lit dark, 15 years, or maybe less. The truth moves best when nothing's sealed in darkness. In a chamber, in a chamber, in a chamber.
Present company accepted, of course.
India.
India, Rhodesia, the United States of America, and Ireland.
And guess
And that's
what?
it. All the rest of you guys have Union Jacks on your flags, and you got the king on your money. Independent nations, my ass.
Yeah, that's right. Now let me
New Zealand, come on.
let me also make one
Rule
point with
Britannia.
George Washington. We made America great.
Again, Rule Britannia.
Not every American liked it though. You know, my wife's family were loyalists, and you know, that was a bourgeois revolution. They were fighting over the Stamp Act and stuff like that, and it's like they just dispossessed all these farmers. My wife's family used to have like they were some of the biggest property holders in the area, and they just weren't involved. They were just farmers. They didn't care about Stamp Acts or anything. They just kept their heads down and kept farming. And then after the war and the revolution, they come up and say, "What you doing in the war? Huh? Nothing, huh? That's right. Well, we're taking your land. We're redistributing it." There's a place here called Gansford, named after a Revolutionary War general, and he had a huge estate, and he got it by like taking farms away from all these people that just lived there. And he had to walk out with a rifle. People would take pot shots at him. They would put like human feces into his well. I mean, there was a lot of resentment for a long time, and a lot of people were dispossessed. The ones that could afford it went to Canada. The rest were impoverished and punished, even though this was a revolution in which only a very small percentage were involved and really had any real skin in the game, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, I was
But-
thinking of Canada when you were talking that's exactly what I heard. Like the way they treated the loyalists was pretty rough, and then
Oh, there were war crimes, you know.
you know, so it was on both sides of the street. You know what I mean? Like everybody always talks bad about England, how bad they were, which they were horrible. But at the same
Depending on
time,
what side of the empire you were on.
we were actually just as bad. I mean, in reality, because like our militia, for one thing, we were probably the first standing guerrilla warfare army or militia that was out there during that war. I've been looking around, and maybe the French-American War had some guerrilla warfare in it.
Oh, I'm sure the French Indian War.
Yeah,
I
French
think there was
Indian.
a 7 Years War over in Europe.
Yeah,
but-
We remind you that during the war, it wasn't the Brits that were doing guerrilla warfare, it was the Dutch.
well,
Oh yeah,
We were
yeah.
still wearing our beautiful red uniforms, standing in lines, standing in columns.
yeah, but you got to remember, time-wise, though, the Boer Wars would have been just after.
Well, that was like
frickin' the
1890s and 1900. They were in khaki by then for field
You
use, though, weren't they?
And the United States kept getting tired of the Boers because, like, they were like stealing our shit and attacking our cargo ships and stuff that went up there. That's the reason why we have Tripoli and freaking
Oh, you mean the Moroccans? Yeah, the
Yeah.
Moors.
yep.
I thought you said Boers. I can't hear well. All the rock and roll music over the
I
years.
thought you said Boers as well.
Yeah,
I did say Boers. Yeah,
Tripoli.
four.
No, Tripoli.
Moors.
The Moors.
Yeah,
They
Moors,
okay.
Boers.
Tripoli.
And stuff.
One
Mr.
syllable.
Franklin, what have you got? Monarchy or a republic?
A republic if you can keep it.
Yeah, well, did you
Well-
keep it? Do you think you kept it?
It varies.
Or are you
It
going
varies
through
a lot.
communism right now?
Ask V. He's got the answer to this one. He does.
I'm sorry, pose the question again.
He
Well, I'm wondering, like, if America is still a republic, or do you think it's changing?
It has been a republic for a very long time. As a matter of fact, it started off as a pseudo republic because you can't have a republic with slaves. You can't have a republic with
Tell that to Plato or the Athenians
yeah.
or the Romans.
I'm not into Platoism. That's this whole other thing. We can get into that at another time. But when you have a republic, okay, you can have 99% of the population wanting one thing, but it's not going to override the 1% that doesn't want that one thing. That's a true republic. Okay.
I do not understand
Well,
your definition of
so-
republic.
So, if you want to talk about what has been a republic, America has never been a republic. It claims being republic, just like it claims to be democratic. Yet we have an electoral college. We have other elements that we, as normal people, are not in control of because we as a people don't go to city council meetings and choose our politicians from the base and on up. So we have an electoral college, and so it's not even a true democracy. And you want to talk about, listen, it is my belief, I want to say this outright, it's my belief that any form of government, whether it's democracy or communism, it works so long as the process isn't corrupt. Corrupt by meaning that there are people overstepping their bounds, getting perks they're not supposed to be getting, and are not following the rules. I believe any system of government works. But it can't work because you have the element of what's called the human being, which is ultimately highly corruptible.
Well, that's why we need checks and balances, right?
Well,
Checks and
And,
balances. Correct.
Well, Aristotle, I think, always had a good point. I was talking to somebody about this today, and one of the big problems that you have with government, and this was a big thing with Aristotle, was you have to remove the ability to make money off of having the office. You have to remove money from politics. And when I was a
100%.
kid growing up, I remember going back to remembering stuff when we were kids, right? I was watching the TV, and they had the news on, and it said, candidate so-and-so has raised so many $1 million. However, candidate such and such has raised so many million more dollars, and so he is probably going to win. And I thought this was very wrong, and everybody seemed to accept this as quite normal. And I'm like, wait a minute, they're basically saying that they're buying the office, and it has nothing to do with whether this guy has good policy ideas or not. It's simply that he has more money.
Neither the witches. Listen closely to the point of the past. It started with a recipe and ended with a splash. Get the ledger, a lemon curd. The blueprints for the temple were drawn on napkins. They stack the heavy stones like sugar cubes. Too much yeast in the mezzanine pass. The marble towers tickle the belly of the clouds. The city built on a very large biscuit, but the town is a thirsty beast with many tongues. Down in the sink of the world, the train is a greedy mouth. Girl in the grass and the grass. It's a long walk to the bottom of the bowl. Now the crabs wear the crowns of kings. Plato found the silver wheel in the sun. He thought it was a scepter for a god. Actually it's just for serving in heavy soup. The magic was just a way to boil eggs, but they boiled the continent instead. A clumsy ritual with a leaking faucet.
Nation is a very large temple. Money man is the tea is quite cold. Soggy mountains, soggy grounds.
And then I heard about campaign finance reform, and it's like, well, we have to limit this and license this. And I'm like, why don't we just eliminate it all? Why do we even have campaigns? Why don't we just have a series of debates a few weeks before the election? And up until that time, politicians do their jobs instead of like gallivanting all over the place. It's gotten to the point where you get elected and then you immediately start campaigning for reelection. So a big thing is the corruption that money brings. If we could remove all money from politics, and it just seems to me like a no-brainer. And yet, in the public discourse, it's never been allowed up until the time now that the internet is out there. You hear these ideas being kicked around, but it's an idea that they would never allow. You'd never see an editorial in the New York Times saying, "Hey, let's stop letting politicians everyone that enters the Senate leaves it a millionaire." No matter how much they go into the Senate with, by the time they get out, they are multimillionaires. There's something wrong there. There's something just so obviously wrong, and then nobody seems to just say, all right, let's just stop it. Not let's modify it, just stop.
But here's the thing, right? This is the ultimate consequence of indirect democracy, where we have representative government that's supposed to do what the people want, but they never end up actually fucking doing it because it's more profitable for them to just like.
Well, it introduces that other factor because in theory you should be answerable to your constituents because you depend upon them for your reelection. But if you're more dependent upon, you don't give a shit about reelection because you're going to have a nice job with Raytheon. And look
at Donald Trump right now. He can't get reelected. So what interest is there for him to follow what the people want? Right? I mean, apart from the midterm,
he's establishing a legacy. He's establishing a legacy, I think. And he has climbed upon the populist tiger. You cannot dismount from it easily. And he's already shown he reminds me a lot of Teddy Roosevelt. He is, if you read the contemporary accounts of Roosevelt, everything they say about Trump, they said about Roosevelt: populist, destroying democracy, a demagogue, right? There's a great political cartoon I posted once in a while. It's Roosevelt riding an elephant with blinders and spurs and a riding crop and just making the grand old party go wherever he wants. And the painting was by Vox Populi. In other words, his populist power gave him power. He reshaped the Republican Party in his own name. Sound familiar? And I mean, if you read the contemporary journalists of the time, they hated him. The press hated him. He was seen as the worst monster, and he made a huge mistake. He was president for one term, and then he stepped away from it, and then he came back, and he had no hope. They closed ranks, and they locked him out of politics after that. He ran on the third party, Bull Moose Party. And I really think that when that was a step that Trump didn't take. There was a big push, and they really wanted him to start a third party at one point. And he's like, why? We've got the Republican Party. He stuck with that and followed the Roosevelt playbook more completely. But I really think he's looking at Teddy Roosevelt as a model.
Now, I want to point something out, too. Like, you guys were talking about a Republican. Hold up,
elections. Let me just finish my point quickly, Roger, before we move on.
I'm not moving on. I just wanted
we already knew that the elections were rigged, and this is supposed to be the most modern democracy in the world, right? And we knew the elections were rigged from day one. Yet it's only taken up until now before anything is being done, anything is being fully investigated. And
only because the opposition got into power to do it too.
Now,
they're putting people in jail just for questioning it.
It's cool. It's cool that you guys are talking about Donald Trump. I want to put this in because
okay.
Now this you guys are
issue with this.
Let's talk about republics. First of all, republics aren't as great as what you guys are making it out to, and a good example of that would be the Republic of Florence. Okay, now whenever Tuscany was running the Republic of Florence, they had what was called the Signoria. It was the Signoria of Signoria or something like that of Florence, and this consisted of guilds that dictated and ruled what was being said. It was a priori, okay, and they were chosen by the guilds of the city, and there were 6 of them, and those were the major guilds. And then I think there were a few other ones that were what they called minor guilds. These are the people who ran freaking this republic. Okay, so that's
Oh yeah. Well, that would go back to the Roman Republic. I mean, and that's the model that the U.S. took. I mean, just look at the buildings down in D.C. Right? They all
Mhm.
wanted to be Romans.
exactly.
But the Roman Republic, you had the Senate, which were the optimates, and these were the property owners, the people with power, the aristocrats, and then you had the people, the populi. That's why it was Senatus Populusque Romanus. It was the Senate and the people of Rome. Some populist emperors, and there were many of them, reversed it. Their banner said the people and the Senate of Rome, PSQR,
Yep.
which the Senate didn't like, but they couldn't do much about. So you had that the ruling body was composed of the aristocrats. You didn't elect senators in ancient Rome. You were selected for the senatorial order if you
Right.
had sufficient wealth and family. And the people would oppose things simply through their mass. They was considered part of the political process. So there was one point where the city was in trouble. The populace didn't feel they were being treated well, so they just left the city and they wouldn't enlist in the army.
And
What
that-
could they? They were like, and that's how they got tribunes, who were the
Right.
people's representatives. So it was always a balancing act between the haves and the have-nots. And that's why, when Aristotle was writing about governments, he talks about how if the aristocrats, his terminology, but I think it's familiar to us, what we see today, if the aristocrats run things, they're going to run things just for the sake of the aristocrats and harm everybody else. If the people run things directly, then they're going to run things for the people and harm everyone else. What you need is a balance through, as Mr. Robot was saying, through checks and balances and a constitution. This is an attempt to try to find a middle path and something that will bring the greatest happiness to everyone. Because yes, just about any government system can be made to work. But Aristotle was seeking for something that would bring the greatest happiness to the greatest number and the most prosperity to everyone in the state, rather than just as one subgroup. So
I
it's always a
agree with
balancing.
that. That should be our overarching goal. But I also think that speaks to V's point, which is that that's not a true republic where the power resides with the people. Right? The
That's
power
never-
resides with the
That's
aristocracy.
where we're coming into definitions of things. This is how the Roman, they called it res publica. It simply means public affairs,
And
really.
that was actually an idea that was never achieved. Okay, like all the stuff that you hear Plato talking about, they never achieved a true republic like Plato wanted.
Well,
But I
Plato's
think we
republic
actually
was a
can
dictatorship.
today, right?
And
Plato's
we
republic was a horrible authoritarian dictatorship.
now Mark Edworthy was pissed off, so
I've got a major problem.
let's hear him talk
Wait,
some
just
horrible
before we go,
stuff.
I just want to finish my point. You talked over me.
Okay.
I think we actually have the ability to achieve that today and maximize happiness across everyone by using modern technology to solve the corruption problem.
Oh, he's
right?
getting mad.
And that includes taking corruption out of the voting system, which includes publicly verifiable voting using blockchain technology. We have that right now; it's free. And in terms of like
Wait, what,
enforcing
it
the people,
just magically appears. I think you are being
already use it.
ideologically, you live in an ideological fantasy land
Let me
in
just-
this case.
let me just finish my point, Mark. And
Okay.
yes, it already exists. It doesn't have to magically appear. We
It's
just
not-
need to start
it's not
using it.
free, though. Some of that you build it, some of that you be paid to
I'm actually
produce it.
building it myself. I know of at least 3 different groups that are building similar technologies. All right. Now, the principles are there, the building blocks are there. We're not using it. And in terms of enforcing the people's will, so we have a problem where politicians, when they get elected, they don't do what they ran on, right? And we have such a concept as a decentralized autonomous organization in blockchain now, where smart contracts can be used to achieve governance. And we're not using that in politics yet, but we could hypothetically enforce the people's will through smart contracts in the future.
Oh, I
you
wish
know?
Bob were here. He would love to hear these words.
Oh,
I
yeah.
hope he listens to this later. This is right up what Bob's been talking about for a long time.
At the
DAOs.
same time, as part of the checks and balances, we need to enforce strict consequences and punishment for corruption and enforce the people's will through the people's militia. Because the problem is when the politicians have like enforce their own what do you call it, when they police themselves, that breeds corruption. So we need an external police force that are enacted by the people, just kind of like the Americans envisioned initially, where the people can enforce the law. So anyway, that's all I want.
Remind you of the French Revolution. That didn't turn out very nice, didn't it?
Well,
was,
that was
sort of-
kind of instigated by the aristocracy as well.
Now-
Set up.
Okay.
You
Okay,
had
just
mean
so-
stuff to say. You better let him have it. Let him have it, Mark. Go.
Yeah. First of all, you, Mr. Robert, ascertained that there was corruption in what was the 2020 US elections. That has not been fully ascertained. Has not been proven in a court of law. It has not. So it's an allegation.